reporters, pride and dignity, stop the New World Order. Welcome to Panwo TV and welcome to this UFO Disclosure 2017. Yes, it wasn't 2015, it wasn't 2016. I know we didn't get disclosure, but instead maybe we'll have it in this year, 2017. I don't know. Anyway, I hope you had a happy new year. I think I wished you a happy new year before. If I didn't on the last film, I'm sorry about that. But, well, let's not forget, this is Roswell 70, isn't it? 70th anniversary of Roswell. So, wouldn't it be apt if we had a UFO disclosure? Wouldn't it be apt if we have UFO disclosure in 2017? On the 70 years after Roswell. How about that? Maybe it'll happen in July. Maybe it'll be exactly 70 years. Maybe it'll happen on the 8th of July. Well, that's something I'll be looking out for, I can tell you. Because that is, of course, Disclosure Day. That's International Disclosure Day. That's when, according to Stephen Bassett, the decision was made to cover up the UFO phenomenon. Now, I personally think the decision was made a lot earlier than that, from a number of years, maybe even decades before then. But there's no doubt that the Roswell incident and the aftermath of the Roswell incident and the lies, the obvious, barefaced and almost panicked-like lies that were told by the government on that day, when the General Ramey empties Roswell sources news story was published, there's no doubt at all that that was a definitive moment in the history of what Steve calls the truth embargo. And so I think it's fitting to have that day as International Disclosure Day. But as Steve has always said, the moment we have disclosure, International Disclosure Day will move from the 8th of July to whatever day, whatever date it happens. So, there's something I've been thinking, something Steve's been thinking too. On this Roswell 70th anniversary year, wouldn't it be great if we had UFO disclosure in the first month? That's right, UFO disclosure could happen this month. Indeed, it could happen this week. In fact, it could happen within hours or days of when you are watching this video. Yes, indeed. I think there's a distinct possibility, and this is what I'm going to talk about. What Steve has said about this. The UFO disclosure could happen this Friday, Friday the 6th of January, 2017. I'm going to make sure I upload this video before then, so you've got plenty of notice. But do please keep an eye on the news and keep an eye for any updates, because if I hear any more, I'll be uploading more videos. If there's even a hint that something like this is going to happen. So, exciting times, ladies and gentlemen, exciting times. But first of all, let's take a look at the most recent disclosure news. Right, well, it's an exciting time for cinema, it seems, at the moment when it comes to UFO and disclosure related issues. I went to see this film. This is really an amazing movie. I thought it was released just after the US presidential election, so I knew it couldn't contain any kind of propaganda about alien invasions if Trump wins or something like that. But as always, I avoided reading any reviews until I'd seen the film, so I wouldn't be biased. So I got in touch with a couple of my friends, Colin and Philip from the Basis Project, and I said, should we go and see Arrival? So I headed there. And they were as intrigued as I was. And we went and watched it in London's West End, and we went to a retro-themed cinema, and it's sort of bar, restaurant, cinema type place in Leicester Square, or near Leicester Square. And it was designed to look and feel very much like a 1920s picture palace, and worked very well, very effective. Now the film is pretty amazing. It's not often you get a really good standalone sci-fi movie from Hollywood these days. It's not part of a series, it's not a remake, it's not an adaptation from some bloody comic book. It's just a complete, on its own, purposefully written science fiction film. And this is a really good one. It's about aliens that just suddenly and unexpectedly land on the Earth without any invitation. It's by the Canadian director Denis Villeneuve, and it's based on a short story by someone called Ted Chiang. Now, as you know, the alien invasion is quite a common movie scenario now, isn't it? And films of the genre vary enormously in technical quality and intellectual content. From very good to very bad, basically, on both scales. But Arrival is very unusual for the trope, because even if you don't normally like science fiction, you would like this perhaps if you have an interest in language, because the central theme of the story is linguistics. And the people whoever wrote the story, Det Chiang, and the people who made the film have really thought a lot about this. They've done a lot of research. Now, there's a single protagonist, the main character, someone called Dr. Louise Banks, who's played by Amy Adams. Now, she's one of the world's leading linguistics experts. As you say, I'm not going to put too many spoilers in this. Okay, so if you've not seen the film, you can still listen on if you like that sort of thing. What happens is a fleet of extraterrestrial spacecraft. I'm just giving away what's in the trailer really here. They land on the Earth, and she's recruited by the government to help them decipher the language that's coming from the aliens inside, because the aliens are trying to communicate and they're having a bit of trouble. And the film does make you think about how would an intelligent extraterrestrial species actually speak? How would they communicate? And there's been a lot of science fiction which gives thought that sort of tackles this matter, but it doesn't do it with much thought, because the aliens, they look like ex-American footballers, because that's who plays them. They're actors. They have blue beards, they have green eyes, and to make them look alien, they roar incoherences about revenge being a dish best served cold and things like that. But how realistic is that? Because real extraterrestrials would have a very, very different psychology to us. They would look, communicate, and act in ways that might well make no sense to us. They could even be completely beyond our understanding. And research into alien abduction is very revealing about this very problem. I think the issues that are raised in this film have a lot of relevance for astronomers in the SETI program, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, and also people who analyse crop circles. And we don't need to go off planet to understand this problem, because scientists involved in animal psychology studies say the same thing. Excuse me. In fact, even if you have a pet dog, you'll know this probably. At some point, your beloved four-legged friend will at some point do something which will mystify you. And you'll say things like, well, why is he doing that? But he knows because he's a dog. We're not dogs, so we don't. Obviously, there are a lot of things humans do which your dog could never comprehend either, so it's mutual. And this is what Arrival brings up. This is a vital point. Translation is more than just about decoding languages when you're dealing with a different species. And there's actually a saying by Ludwig Wittgenstein, he was a hospital porter. Yes, he was. But he was also an occasional amateur part-time philosopher, But he once said, if a lion could speak, we still could not understand him. And I think he would have enjoyed Arrival. I mean, he died a long time ago. But he would have enjoyed this film if he was alive today. He really would. Different ways of speaking involve different ways of thinking, and this is why the powers that be pay so much attention to language. This is why there's so much control over language in authoritarian societies. This is why you get like cultural Marxist political correctness and things like that. They whittle language, they mould it into ways that suit them. This is what George Orwell's book 1984 was all about. And it's funny, this film has other sort of very clever little pieces of conceptualizing, a very fertile kind of imagination. It breaks from a lot of other sci-fi norms. For instance, the spacecraft, they're not like metal objects, and they're not like you'd expect them to be from other science fiction films. They're these huge crescent-shaped things called shells. That's what the humans call them. But they have this kind of ceramic texture to them. It's as if they're like flying mountains, carved flying mountains. Maybe they're made out of asteroids. I don't know, but the aliens have clearly invented anti-gravity in the propulsion system for the vessel, but also the interior has its own gravitational environment, because they've got an outer door on the underside, and that leads to this vertical corridor, this shaft that goes up into the heart of the vessel. Everything appears to be made of stone, and when the humans enter the vehicle, they use a cherry picker just to hoist them up in through the door. But once they're inside, they can walk. The shaft, it seems, turns into a corridor because there's an artificial gravitational field at right angles to the Earth. Amazing. And the Arrival also examines the time of this idea of time being non-linear. So one of the characters has memories of the future. You see, it's very strange. David Icke has talked about this idea of time loops, and you even get this in programs like Doctor Who. It's very vivid, actually. Arrival. It uses similar techniques to Paul Davids' Roswell movie. It generates fly on the wall kind of sensations because there's lots of shots of handheld moving cameras. It makes you feel like you're really there, and if you can see it in the big screen, it's still in the cinema at the time I'm making this film. Do go and see it in the cinema, because some of these effects can't be fully reproduced on TV. Do go and see it on the big screen if you can. And the way the public react to the landing, that's very plausible as well. And this is what I've had to mull over when I'm writing my own stories. Roswell Rising, a novel of disclosure. And the score's very good too. It's like spooky stuff. There's random syllables, a bit like jazz cat singing. No, 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 things like that. And maybe that's how human languages sound to the aliens. There's these big spooky woo sort of ghost train noises when there's these wide-angle shots of the spacecraft. Yep, please do go and see this film. It is a very interesting movie. An alien invasion flick, but one with a huge difference. Highly recommended. Now, there's a new book that's just been released by Flying Disc Press called UFOs over Romania by Dan D. Farkas. Now, this is a really good book, and it's got some really amazing evidence. It centres on Romania, a country in Eastern Europe, which Philip's been publishing a series of books about countries in Eastern Europe and the UFOs that come from them. Now, there's some amazing things in here. Like there's a UFO photo from 1923 that shows a disc-shaped object hovering above a church in Romania, and there's lots of others, old frescoes from the medieval time that show these disc-shaped objects. It seems like, if you go into Transylvania, there's like little aliens appearing in Transylvania. It's not just the vampires, but the vampire legend and the UFOs are connected, because they've got like blood-sucking creatures like the chupacabra or similar to it. Well worth reading this book, I tell you. And what's more, I've done an interview with the author. It's a 3-part interview. By the time you watch this film, the first interview will probably be available on Hapanwo Radio. So to listen to the interview, just go to Hapanwo Radio. Go to the hapanwo-radio.blogspot.com. You'll find the link on the Hapanwo TV blog to that, and you will find the podcast for that interview, because I'll have already broadcasted it by then. So, and get the book if you can. Very, very interesting indeed. Now, for those of you who watched the last film in this series, UFO Disclosure 2016, What About Trump?, I interview the filmmaker Sandra DeRoy, and we talk about the upcoming premiere for her film. Now, this was supposed to premiere a couple of weeks ago, and it didn't happen. It all went to pot, and the film unfortunately did not premiere. But there's another premiere coming up, and I'm not sure when it's going to be exactly, but it's going to be somewhere in London. It's going to be at a proper cinema, and if you want to know what the details are, you need to keep an eye on the Hapanwo Voice blog. Alright, I'll put details on that blog as soon as they're available. So to go to the link in the description box. I can't keep filling the description box with links. Go to the Hapanwo Voice blog, hapanwo-voice.blogspot.com. If you go to the Hapanwo TV blog, there's a link to Hapanwo Voice from there. And do get to it though. Please, it'd be great if you can get to the premiere, because I'll be there, and lots of other people will be there, and we'll have a great time. It'll be a great social event, as well as enjoying the amazing movie that we talked about in the last program. If you want to listen to my interview with Sandra DeRoy, do go to the link in the description box, because I do have a link to the previous film in this series. Right, now, how many of you haven't read my book, Roswell Rising, a Novel of Disclosure? If you haven't, then you don't want to look at what I'm about to show you, or don't go to the page that I'm about to show you and talk to you about. Read the book first. But anyway, what I've done is I've actually started writing the sequel to Roswell Rising. It's going to be called Roswell Revealed, the World After Disclosure. And what I've decided to do, because I'm in the process of writing it, I've decided to do the same thing as I did before when I was writing the first book. It's put up a free sample chapter online before the main book is finished, and that'll give you an idea of what the book's about, and hopefully encourage you to purchase the complete book when it is published. Now, I say, if you haven't read Roswell Rising, don't read this sample chapter, because firstly it contains spoilers for the first book. And secondly, it is literally a continuation of the same story. It has many of the same characters. It's basically it's set in the same world, the same universe. It starts immediately when the last book leaves off. Okay, so do read Roswell Rising first. If you've read Roswell Rising, Roswell Rising is available at all good bookshops, and you can buy it on the Hapanwo on Amazon, and you can just put in my name, Benjamin Jones, and the title of the book, and it'll appear, or on Ben's bookcase. Now, if you have read Roswell Rising, and you want to read the sample chapter for Roswell Revealed, it's easy. Just go to the Ben's bookcase blog, hapanwo-bb.blogspot.co.uk, and you'll see it there. It's the same length as the first sample chapter, 30,000 words, and I'm pleased with it. I'm pleased with what I've done, and yeah, it should be a good book when it's finished. And of course, it's Roswell years. It's Roswell anniversary years, and it's 70th anniversary of Roswell now, so it's perfect timing for it. I must get the book finished actually before July. Now, now we're going to talk about what's going to happen. I'm going to sort of carry on from the last video where I talked about Trump, and we're going to talk about more, because what's happening now is we may be getting close to the actual disclosure. In fact, by the time this video is uploaded, it might be about to happen. I'm not sure, but anyway, first of all, I'm going to play you a clip from a radio show. Okay, this is the Unexplained with Howard Hughes, episode 279, and in this episode he interviews Linda Moulton Howe, and she comments on her own views. What she has to say is very interesting, because she is aware of the same things that I am, and she's come to the same conclusions that I am regarding the Trump situation. And well, there's no firm conclusions, but let's just listen to the clip. Okay, first of all,
I want to talk about something that you and I are both very interested in, because every time there's a change of president, for as long as I can remember, there has been a flurry. When we've had the internet, it's been on the internet. If it wasn't in the internet days, it was on the radio, of people saying, this is going to be the president who will be the game changer. This next president will be the one who opens the files. They said it about Bush. They said it about Bill Clinton. They said it about Obama. They said it a lot about Obama. You and I talked about that. It didn't happen. So we can only assume, can't we, that Mr. Trump is having his briefings about what is in Area 51, about what's been happening since Roswell, perhaps even before that. Do we believe that Mr. Trump will usher in the era that all of these people have been getting so excited about for so many decades?
It's a very good question, Howard, and as you and I talked, I and Grant Cameron and a few of us in the United States and Canada who have had I'm going to say sort of close inside the White House, Washington, DoD area, that we had been being told for at least a year or two or more that it was going to be the president after Obama, that it would certainly be Hillary. And that Hillary Clinton, working with John Podesta, who goes all the way back to Bill Clinton and was Hillary's campaign manager in this most recent election effort, that John Podesta has tried for 10, 15 years to line up what we'll call the pawns on the chessboard of how do we get open the first worldwide headline. We are not alone in this universe. We have never been alone in this universe, and that there are very advanced intelligences out there that have come and gone on this planet and may even have bases here now. All of those words I just said were all part of a discussion going on between John Podesta, Hillary Clinton. She came pretty close with Jimmy Kimmel about 6 or 7 months ago when she was on that program, and Kimmel asked her a question about the UFO field and was she going to get to the bottom of everything if she were elected. And on that show, Late Night Talk, she said, well, we think that the aliens may have been here, and then she did a caveat, we're not sure, but I can give you the new phrase that they are known by, and instead of saying unidentified, which is the correct first word, she said unexplained aerial phenomena, and it means that somebody had been trying to brief her on unidentified aerial phenomena as being the UK. It is the UK that has led on trying to rename UFOs, perhaps to get the public and the media off their backs from FOIA UFO requests. But nevertheless, she was beginning to use the words that all of us thought. She will be elected. It's finally going to happen. We have even been told by other people behind the scenes just in the last few months that it might have been between November 8th and January 20th, Inauguration Day, that Podesta and Hillary would have opened up with a headline, "We're not alone." Now, with the earthquake in the United States of the Trump election, nobody knows. It's like all bets are off. If a President-elect Trump is briefed on issues that you and I and others have been exposed to for some time, will his reaction be to dismiss? Will his reaction be shock? Will his reaction be the people must be told? Nobody knows. And so, as we now head for January 20th, Howard, I think one of the big growing issues in the United States behind the scenes is if Hillary and John Podesta were ready to start opening up the truth that there's an alien presence, would Trump slam it down or try to keep it open himself? And none of us, I think, are ever going to have a clue with this new president-elect until he decides on his own, perhaps completely independently from the DOD.
Very interesting indeed. I personally think that Linda Moulton Howe has a better grasp on this situation than Stephen Bassett. She's certainly a lot more optimistic than Grant Cameron, if you remember from the last programme. Yeah, I mean, she is actually not. She's not ready to do what Grant Cameron did, is basically give up. Yet, I think she understands, perhaps more than Steve Bassett, that this focus on Hillary being the next president is not the only focus. Because I mean, there was this real, perhaps excessive, dependence on Hillary Clinton's victory within this community, within the people advocating for disclosure. That perhaps they've missed out on what I think is a very, very important point, which Linda Moulton Howe is willing to address, and I think she may have understood independently and grasped independently some of the same points that I have, which is that Trump should not be discounted. Far from it. I mean, I'm probably more I feel more favourable to Trump than any of them, including Linda Moulton Howe. For reasons I said in the last film, I think that he may even be a far more fitting, and probably almost certainly is a far more fitting disclosure president as a candidate than Hillary Clinton. But anyway, let's go through what Steve says. I'm going to return to the little press release that Steve issued on the 17th of November, which I talked about in the last programme. I'm going to read through it, and I'm going to just address some of the points in detail. Okay. Right. 2 days after the election defeat of Hillary Clinton, so I won't imitate Steve's voice. I can't speak as quickly as him. The Paradigm Research Group received a message from a source within the military intelligence community known to PRG. The message, paraphrased, is this: persons who are directly involved in the management of the extraterrestrial issues want disclosure to take place under President Obama and are ready to work with the Secretary of Defense if approached. This contact is notable as it marries up with another recent Pentagon action involving the founder of the rock groups Blink 182 and Angels and Airwaves. Sometime during the past 2 years, when articles about the Clinton E.T. Rockefeller Initiative connection were being published, worldwide musician Tom DeLonge was engaged by... the connection were being published worldwide. Musician Tom DeLonge was engaged by top officials in the Pentagon who wished to assist Mr. DeLonge in bringing ET-related information to the public in the form of books and films. That was from the those WikiLeaks emails, the ones that I've covered in the last couple of programs. Do you remember the various connections between the Pentagon and Tom DeLonge? The Pentagon also provided a 10-person advisory panel to help with this project. Many observers challenged the veracity of DeLonge's claims until these claims were essentially confirmed by emails from the files of the Clinton campaign chairman, John Podesta, released by WikiLeaks leading up to the presidential election. What is going on here? PRG has publicly stated the agenda of the Clinton team has been to disclose the extraterrestrial presence to the American people and the world if and when she became President of the United States. That option is removed. And that's talking about Podesta, of course. And Steve has been talking about John Podesta for many years now, and has said he's the guy you got to Google regularly, because he's the man who stood up and said the people deserve to know the truth because it's right. I'm paraphrasing now, because it's right, because the people can handle the truth, and because it's the law. That's what he said. The Clintons now have to make the Clintons now have a choice to make of historic proportions. Should they immediately take interviews with top journalists and discuss in greater detail what they know about the ET issue and what transpired during the Rockefeller Initiative 1993 to 1996, the resulting media storm will force the Pentagon and the White House to reach the necessary understanding, allowing Barack Obama to be the disclosure president. Blimey. Or should they remain silent and allow the truth embargo to continue on into the next administration? The Trump administration, in other words. It's right. Here we go. This rapprochement is necessary because the President and the Secretary of Defense are not briefed by the relevant military intelligence managers on the unacknowledged special access program USAPs dealing with the extraterrestrial presence. Are not briefed. Hang on. It's necessary. What? Because the Clintons. I don't quite understand what Steve is saying here. Is he saying that the Clintons have been briefed, or because was he just suggesting that Trump administration has not been briefed? Because Linda Moulton Howe was just saying that she doesn't know. It's possible. Because Linda actually has a lot of very, very high level contacts actually. Here we go. In order for the Secretary of Defense to approach the White House regarding disclosure, he must reach down into the military intelligence complex for the needed information to proceed. Although the managers of the ET issue are constrained by the high level of classification, PRG is now convinced they are ready to provide that information although the managers of the ET issues are constrained by the highest level of classification, PRG is now convinced they are ready to provide that information because there was a growing internal consensus that disclosure must take place under President Obama. Right. So basically there's like a window of opportunity now, a rapidly shrinking, very, very small window of opportunity. And as Steve says now, this process is time sensitive. Disclosure would need to happen early enough for the nation to absorb such extraordinary information and settle down prior to the inauguration. What? To settle down? Anyway, I think it's going to take more. I mean, the inauguration is on the 20th of January. That's just over 2 weeks. I think it's going to take a little bit more time for the nation and the world to settle down after such a revelation of that magnitude than 2 weeks. I mean, this is coming into my disagreements with Steve that I've talked about before. There would also be time to prepare various government agencies of the engagement for the engagement of the media and the public going forward. Then the new president would be stepping into a relatively stable and organised post-disclosure status. Let me say that again. Let me just read the whole bit again, actually. Disclosure would need to happen early enough for the nation to absorb such extraordinary information and settle down prior to the inauguration. There would also be time to prepare various government agencies for the engagement of the media and the public going forward. Then the new president, Donald Trump, will be stepping into a relatively stable and organised post-disclosure status. I mean, whatever happens, when Donald Trump takes office on the 20th of January, if Steve is right and Obama, blows the whistle, but he comes clean before then, the presidency and the administration he's going to be stepping into, and the America he's going to have to govern, is going to be anything but stable and organised. Anyway, I mean, I've been through this before. I mean, again, I don't want to sound like I'm just a book merchant, but my whole book, Roswell Rising: A Novel of Disclosure, is about this. It's about this whole issue, about what would happen, how would it affect society. Okay. With this in mind, PRG would assert disclosure after January the 6th, 2017 would not be a reasonable option. That's this Friday, ladies and gentlemen. 2 days' time from when I'm filming this. Less than that from when you're watching it. This means that Clinton would have a choice to make and a few weeks to reach a decision. Well, it's longer because this was a press release he put out on the 17th of November. So it's much less time than that now. Now, I've always said, I mean, the one thing I do think Steve is right about is if willing disclosure was going to happen, it would happen on a Friday. It would happen on a Friday evening, Washington time. So that's around about maybe 11 o'clock, close to midnight, Greenwich Mean Time. The reason is because they would need the weekend basically to get over it. Like the stock market's reacting, things like that. The Congress and stuff would be away. People would basically just need a weekend to calm down and get their breath back, basically. The stock market in particular, of course, shuts on Friday evening. It doesn't open until Monday, so it would all be a Friday. Well, the only Friday he's talking about here, before January the 6th, is this Friday coming. As I'm filming this, it's Wednesday evening, Wednesday the 4th. Anyway, below are recent articles either featuring or referring to the decision facing the Clintons to begin speaking in full to the ET issue and initiating events leading to disclosure under President Obama. Many more articles will soon be published. Well, we'll see what happens. I personally think that we will not see disclosure this Friday, but I could be wrong, and I hope I am. I always want to be proved wrong on this. I always want Steve to be right, and there's nothing I like better from him to be right. But I suspect, for reasons I've explained in the previous two films, and also in my videos covering the presidential election, that if there's going to be a disclosure president, it's far more likely to be Donald Trump than Hillary Clinton, despite everything what Steve has said about the Rockefeller Initiative and the various and the various things that Hillary has said on Kimmel, which Linda was talking about, things that her husband Bill has been saying about, Ryan from Belfast, I wish they'd tell me because I don't know. Stuff like that. But I think it's... I mean, to repeat what I said in the previous film, Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton are so different as people. Hillary Clinton her connections to the power structures that govern this world are solid, and they are multiple. She's the perfect globalist leader, just like her crooked husband, her rapist husband, who she appeases and apologises and enables. Honestly, they are, as I said before, they're not people I trust and feel any kind of I don't feel secure with these people being having such a major secret in their hands and trusting them to tell people the full truth and nothing but the truth. Donald Trump, on the other hand, as I've said before, he's fairly apolitical as presidents go. He's not succeeded in public office before. One of only 2 presidents to do so, along with Eisenhower, who warned us about the military-industrial complex. And there's as I said before, there's an element of humanity to that man that is very, very rare among statesmen. I've not seen it among many people, and many people know. I mean, this is why it's so encouraging that in 2016 you're getting more and more senior politicians that appear to be, well, basically human. If you want, for want of a better word, human. Politicians who have principles, who have a brain, they have a backbone, they have a stomach, they have a heart, a stomach, and basically everything else that humans have. People like Vladimir Putin, Jeremy Corbyn, and Donald Trump. It's, as I've said before, it's as if I've said this in more detail on my videos covering the election and on previous ones in this series, but I do get the feeling that the hidden hand is slipping. It is slipping away. I've never felt that before, never considered that before, but is it too early to hope? If it's true, then Donald Trump is the most likely president to be the disclosure president ever. At least since Eisenhower, maybe Kennedy, who they shot. And on the subject of being shot, I mean, this is why. I mean, I know I said before that, you know, if they were going to kill Trump, they'd have done it months ago. He'd have either sort of like his popularity would have dropped before he even got to the primaries, or they'd have arranged a sticky end for him. So I mean, there's a part of me that says, well, if they haven't done it already, they're not likely to try and kill him now. It's a bit late for that. He's been elected. He's going to be inaugurated in just a fortnight's time. But honestly, every time I get the opportunity, I check the news to see if he's all right. Because if I heard if a news story suddenly appeared saying, "Oh, Donald Trump's had a heart attack," or Donald Trump has been in a plane crash, which is the traditional way Clintons get rid of their rivals, everyone who pisses off Bill and Hillary Clinton comes a cropper in some way, and plane crashes are the usual way. You know, you take off in a light aircraft, and something goes wrong with the engine and it crashes. Or someone shot him, you know. There's already been several people who've tried to shoot him already. If that happened, I would not even bat an eyelid. There'd be absolutely no surprise at all. What I would feel is great sadness. I would feel, because as I said, Donald Trump is one of the few people who've been in a political position that I feel any sense of respect for, any sense of affection for. I believe that he can be a great force for good in this world. And yet I know, here come all the other conspiracy theories saying, Ben, you fool, you naive fool, he's just another he's controlled opposition. Yeah, I know. Oh, that's right, you're so superior, aren't you? So we'll see what happens. There'll be more videos in this series. There may even be another one before Friday, if it looks likely what Steve says is true, and as I hope it is. But I think we're going to have to wait a little bit longer. I think we're going to have to wait until after. I don't want to sound like a bloody wet blanket, all right, but I keep thinking, every time I think to myself, if Donald Trump makes it, and even if he gets inaugurated, I mean, how long will, even if he gets past his inauguration, will he have time to do what he needs to do during his time in the White House? Because it takes time. I mean, people talk about his first 100 days, you know, his 100-day plans and things like that. Well, I mean, has he got 100 days? Will they let him live 100 days? You know, my guess is it'll be some kind of heart attack they may plan for him. I mean, the thing about him, he's an old guy. He's the oldest guy ever to be president, 70, you know. But he's a fit man. Obviously, he's well looked after, and he can afford the best healthcare. So there's no reason to think that he's going to have a heart attack naturally. So if all I'm saying is, if he suddenly comes down with a heart attack, I think we should be more than suspicious. And I don't want it to happen. I really don't. I want him to live. So I mean, maybe it's a time. I don't know whether the word is praying. I mean, I do talk to the spirit of the universe, whatever you talk to it, and I say, please, please, take care of Donald Trump and his family. Please don't let anything happen to them. So, until the far side of the apocalypse, thank you for watching Hapanwo TV. Hospital Port as pride and dignity. Stop the New World Order.